but every week, myself and our team, we're talking to 30 plus immigration attorneys. We're consolidating the information from all these attorneys. Some of them will do hundreds of E2 visas a year. We just love understanding, helping people and why people move and trying to make that dream a reality in a compact time frame. When we reach out to the franchisor on behalf of the client, it's very credible. And they know that we're the real deal. We do drive a tight process. Clients do invest at a high threshold, so they tend to take our client inquiries very seriously and apply fast.
All right. Well, this will be the last episode of the Zero to Profitable Franchise podcast. I'll make a separate video explaining why. In the meantime, I'm excited to share that I will be launching the Franchise Empire show here soon. So what we're going to do is we're going to feature interviews of individuals who are building a franchise empire. They could be franchisees, they could be franchisors, or more. Now, those episodes will be on our new YouTube channel called the Franchise Empire Show. We will no longer put the podcast episodes on this YouTube channel. The link will be in the description below for you to go subscribe to that channel. So our first episode will air on May 13th, so go subscribe now so you don't miss out on that episode. Now to our guest, Patrick Findaro. So he's the first, and now that the podcast is ending, the only returning guest on the Zero to Profitable Franchise podcast. Patrick is the managing partner and co-founder at Vetted Biz and Visa Franchise. And today we're going to talk about the E2 visa and how to come to the U.S. through buying a franchise business. So if you're looking to come to the United States, Patrick has created a very generous offer for you. Typically, his team charges $200 for a consultation, and for our listeners, he's offering to waive that fee completely and hold a free consultation with his team. So that offer will only be available through the special link that is down below in the description. Otherwise, sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. All right, everyone, I'm here with Patrick Findaro. Patrick, you are the first person to officially be on the podcast twice. How do you feel?
That's awesome. I'm honored. You've had some amazing guests on, and yeah, it's a big compliment coming from you, Tariq.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise. Yeah, you get some great guests on yours as well.
I think we'll get you back on ours.
Well, let's do it.
You have a lot to talk about, so
yeah,
we just have to find the theme.
Cool. Well, so today we're really going to hit on E2, like E2 visas, and I'm excited to dive in because for anyone that is looking to come to the U.S., right, and do it through E2 or EB5 or whatever, if you're looking to come to the U.S. and own a business, then you're really the guy. I mean, you're the go-to guy. So I'm excited to really unpack this and, really go deeper than probably most people do through this process, so we can provide people some exciting value. And we have a special offer for those of you guys, which is Patrick and his team usually charge about $200 for like an initial consultation. And congratulations, you're going to get a free consultation. So you get to save $200 if you want to talk to Patrick or his team on what that looks like. We'll put the link in the description below, so you can just check below and the link will be there. But you ready to do this, man? I'm excited.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Cool. So for someone, let's just hit on what are the options. So if someone's looking to come to the U.S., right, and live in the U.S. and they, their path to do it is going to be by owning a business. Like, can you explain the differences first between like E2, EB5, and like maybe some minor pro and cons?
Yeah, what their options are? Yeah, definitely. So for foreign entrepreneurs, maybe you work at a company and you're not an entrepreneur yet. As long as you have $80,000, $100,000 to invest in a U.S. business, and you have a passport from a country that has a treaty of commerce and navigation with the U.S., basically just an investor treaty where me as an American, I can go to Italy and do business. Italians can come to the United States to do business. There's about 80 companies. Tariq will send you a link for the State Department website of what those 80 countries are, but it's a lot of the Americas, including Canada, Mexico, all of Western Europe, a lot of countries in Africa, as well as Asia, Australia, that are eligible for the E2 visa. So low investment amount. You just have to employ a couple Americans. It can be any type of business, startup, franchise, buying an existing business, buying an existing franchise. That's the E2 visa. Very fast. You can get a visa in anywhere from 1 to 3 months. With COVID, it blew it out to 6 to 12 months for a lot of consulates, even more. But we're seeing processing times down to 1 to 3 months. So starting with us today at Visa Franchise, in 6 months, you can be living here in the United States with your family, starting up your business. So that's the E2 visa. And then going to the EB5 visa, there's about 40,000 or so E2 visas issued every year, including renewals. EB5 is capped at 10,000. There's no cap for E2 visa. It's unlimited. EB5 is a direct path to green card, although it's taking some time to get that, to get the permanent residence, but you can adjust status. So say you're living here in the United States, you're on an H-1B, or you're just laid off, you can invest $800,000 in a business. You own 100% of it, or whatever percentage of that business. You employ 10 Americans, and you can apply for the EB5 green card. So with that, 10 American jobs, investment $800,000 most of the time. If you don't meet certain criteria, it's $1,050,000. What I don't like about EB5 is it takes a while to get the green card, 4 years, and then to get the final green card after you prove you've created the jobs, another 4 years. So 8 years right now. So It really, that option's a good fit for Chinese nationals, Indian nationals that maybe don't have another alternative. But if you're from one of those E2 visa treaty countries, there's probably a faster way to get a green card, and the E2 visa is a fast fit. And there's other categories of green cards that you can get once you have the E2 visa, including EB2, EB1, EB3, especially through the spouse that has work authorization while they are on an E2 visa. So there's a lot of options, but from an investor visa side, it's the E2 visa, which 95% of our clients choose as the first step. And then you have the EB5, which is less utilized in franchising and simply going to be in a preschool, a healthcare-related franchise, fast food joint that has to have at least 10 Americans.
Wow. So if there was any doubt on whether you were like an expert on this process, I think that clearly showed that you are, because even for me who is familiar, that it felt complex, right? And so I guess the beauty of what you guys do is you help to take a process that typically can feel very overwhelming, very complex, scary, right? There's a lot of emotions and, hey, like we're going to move to another country, buy a business, like 2 significant life events. I'm curious to touch on that side of things. Like, how do you see that those things come up, like the emotions and the fear and the uncertainty, and like, how do you guys help to navigate that? Is it just by in a way, it's like you're having to do a couple of different things. You're having to do the process and then really help to support people emotionally as they're uprooting their family.
Empathy. People are moving countries. This is a traumatic event. I did this when I was 20 years old, moved to Brazil, but I had that network of study abroad. A lot of these people are leaving home. Maybe their English skill isn't that high, and you have a spouse who you have to convince to make the move to the United States, and you have a couple kids. So the stakes are high, and we make that process a lot easier with our client service team, who's always available on WhatsApp. And essentially, we act as a node. So it's like, I might seem smart on these immigration issues, but every week, myself and our team, we're talking to 30 plus immigration attorneys.
Wow.
So we're consolidating the information from all these attorneys, that some of them will do hundreds of E2 visas a year. So we get the information, and then we share that with our clients and the other immigration attorneys in our network. So we know what's happened. We know changes with the consulate process, changes with USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. So we act as a node. We have great relationships with all these immigration attorneys. We worked with over 100 immigration attorneys to date on different cases. So we act as a node, and the immigration attorney is a vital part of this, that they're our ally and we're working together with them and we're doing everything that's business related. But oftentimes we're acting as the American quarterback, making sure everything moves together and the objectives are being met in terms of when you want to move to the US and when you want to open up that business. But empathy is huge, and we understand that. We have colleagues from, I think, 10 different nationalities, 40 employees. We speak 7 different languages. So we're super curious. We're all very curious. It's one of our core values. And we speak different languages.
Curious.
And we just love understanding why people, helping people and why people move, and trying to make that dream a reality in a compact time frame.
Interesting. It's almost like you guys are like project managers and therapists in one.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Because it's someone trying to manage a construction process. For anyone who's done that, that's the kind of the analogy that popped in my head, like trying to manage the different contractors and them not showing up on time or showing up on time, and this one not communicating with this one, and so on and so forth. So when you said you guys are kind of like the node, it's like you guys are the central point that brings it all together and kind of manages that process, which is, obviously a tremendous value.
So I get multiple emails a week from companies asking to run ads on the podcast. I could have ads if I wanted to, but I don't. So there are 2 ways that you can help to support me and the podcast to keep it ad-free. First is to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment, even a smiley face if you have nothing to say. The YouTube algorithm only shows the video to more people based on the likes and comments on the video. So your comment could help someone get exposed to this, and not to sound too cheesy, but it could legitimately change their life. Lastly, go ahead and share this with someone that you think will enjoy this episode. Maybe someone who you know loves business and entrepreneurial stuff, or maybe it's someone who's been saying that they want to own their own business for forever. You can message it to them directly or share it on your social media. It would mean the world to me. You guys rock. Enjoy.
We've been there and done it. So maybe there's an immigration attorney that's working on his 5th E2. We've had over 600 clients engage our services, and I've helped hundreds of families over the last 8 years. So we can help, support that immigration attorney with some of his strategy. Also, compared to maybe another advisor on the franchise space, we have over 100 clients that engage our services every year, 8 or 9 a month. So, we do serious volume, and we learn from every single case, and we're always looking to get better and not make the same mistake twice. And it's a moving target. We do not work with Americans. We only work and we only consult with foreign nationals.
Yeah, which is such an interesting segment, which is great. So you guys you're a specialist, right? It's like whenever someone has a serious injury or something, you go and see the specialist. The value is in the specialist, right? Instead of a generalist, which is, why it made so much sense for us to have this conversation and say, hey, in the past we've had a couple of folks come through our system with E2 visas, but they're really better served, right? Going through a group like you guys who specialize in that. That's really just not our specialty. Although I'm trying to remember if we talked about this on the first podcast, but I sold my first store to an E2 visa buyer.
That's right. You had mentioned that.
Yeah.
In Orlando, you told me.
Yeah. Oh, got it. Yeah. So that was cool and that was interesting. And he bought it cash, and it worked out great for him. That right after I sold it, the business went up 40% in the next year. It was already the business.
You got to be happy for him. Like, that's what you want to see. Your legacy continues on and thrives.
For sure. I know that store is doing very, very well now. So it was good for him, and it was a great deal, and it was a smooth.
We follow all our clients.
Say it again.
So we follow all our clients in terms of how they're doing, how they're progressing, and it's pretty clear, who does well now. If it was back 7-8 years ago, we didn't know exactly what we were doing franchise side, and we didn't know the matchmaking as well. So there were, some failures there that I definitely take fault for. just not knowing as much about the space and the gamut and kind of playing that matchmaker role. But now it's, if you work hard in the right system, you will make money and you will provide for your family. If you don't work hard, then it's not going to go well, and you're going to have to inject more capital in the business and potentially close it. There is an alternative that we find the day-to-day manager together with the franchisor, and say you have a high net worth and you're already making 300, 400, 500K a year. We have options for those type of entrepreneurs, investors, but we've got to know that from day one. It's either you're grinding it 40, 50, 60 hours a week for those first 2 years, and you're going to make money, you're going to get your E2 visa, you're going to provide for your family, or I want you to invest more capital and we're going to find a professionalized manager for you. We don't really play in the middle. It's either I want someone all in, working super hard, or, minimal hours, and there's a day-to-day manager in place. That day-to-day manager leaves, the franchisor will find a new day-to-day manager, and they have your back throughout the process.
Yeah. What do you feel like are some of the mistakes that people make as they are embarking on this journey of E2?
Great question. So one part is just being early in the process is you can reach out to franchisors on your own. You can reach out to business brokers on Biz Buy Sell, but it's not going to be as credible as if you were in the United States and you were reaching out from a US number, and it's hard for them to see if it's a dream or if it's something that's really going to happen. Where for us, we charge an upfront fee. So when we reach out to the clients when we reach out to the franchisor on behalf of the client, it's very credible. And they know that we're the real deal. We do drive a tight process. Clients do invest at a high threshold. So they tend to take our client inquiries very seriously and apply fast. So you can do it on your own, but just don't expect the process to go fast if you're doing it on your own. If you're working with an advisor like us or someone else, it's going to go faster because we have the credibility already built with the franchisor, and you're often not going to get a reply if you reach out directly, or it's going to be delayed. Obviously, give it a try. So I would say that realistic expectation where working with an advisor, it could be a 2-month process, 3-month process. On your own, probably going to be 6 months for a franchise. On your own business for sale, which is another option I'd like to talk about, 6 months to 18 months. You're reaching out to different business sellers, business brokers. You're going to go through 4 due diligences on average. You're paying an accountant every time. You go to the final stages, you try to negotiate the investment being conditioned on the E2 visa approval. Consulate times might be taking 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. They're not going to want to do that. So business for sale can be great under the right circumstances, especially like a franchise resale, but it's hard to negotiate with a one-off seller compared to us at Visa Franchise being able to negotiate on your behalf with the franchisor, knowing we have over 100 clients a year. So I think understanding the timelines, doing it yourself versus working with a professional advisor like Visa Franchise, and then just not committing. The government wants you to commit. You have to be shown as serious. So what does that mean? You've invested the capital. You've invested at least $100,000. So that could be franchise fee. It could be your car that you use for the business. It could be maybe $20K working capital, your flights to the United States, your hotels in the US while you were investigating the different franchise businesses. All that, you got to invest up to $100K. Some of that can be, the franchise fee is negotiable. Is it all refundable if you get denied? Is 90% of it refundable? 50% of it refundable? That's where the negotiation comes in, and we push hard on the franchisor on your behalf. But you have to show commitment. If you ideally the business is open or about to open, and you apply for the visa then. If you apply for a visa just with like a letter of intent, no executed lease, especially for a retail type business, it's risky. So listen to the immigration attorney, especially those attorneys that do serious volume for the E2 visa, or if you go another path like the EB5, vet the attorney and make sure they're doing, 20, 30, 40 plus cases a year for that Visa category.
Yeah. And so do you find, because you talked about there's a couple different paths that you can go, which I love because it's one of the things that we talk to our clients about is, okay, so you're talking about you can go the new franchise route, you can buy a resale, you can, buy a traditional business, you can expand the current business, which you were talking to, I think, before we hit record. So what does that look like, and what do you see most of your clients wind up doing?
Yeah, so you have the startup option. If you already have an amazing business in your country, you already have American customers, and it makes sense to invest $100K, then you should explore that option. If you don't need to invest $100K though, you probably want to have an anchor business that does justify $100K investment, so you're not blowing through a ton of cash. So for example, a software engineer that has clients in the United States, what's he going to invest in? Like $2,000 of computer and then a rental space? That's not enough for the E2 visa, even though he's generating business through that software consulting practice. We could look to have it like an anchor franchise. So you have the startup. If you haven't already done business in the United States, if you haven't spent significant time in the US, it is risky. It's the most competitive market in the world. Everyone wants to be here. So many consumers. So startup is very risky. But if you already have clients, I don't want to stop you. Go with that. And if it makes sense to invest $100K, you have that startup option. Then on the franchise side, so starting at 80, $100K, you can do a startup. It's generally a startup franchise, so opening from zero, where it's going to probably be a service-based business. So think cleaning, property management, anything that's service-based where you go to the client and the client's not coming to you, essentially. So you have that. And if you want to do a franchise resale, which we do have clients do, and I'm curious to hear what valuations you're seeing, but usually 200, 300K, if not more, because they're trading at 2, 3, 4 times what that owner is making. So good luck buying a business that for $80,000, the owner's probably losing money. Maybe he's reporting that he's making 30K, but like an 80K business for sale, you're going to waste a lot of time looking at those type of businesses. If you have a budget above 200K, the franchise resales open up. I'm curious, Tariq, are you seeing something similar on the franchise resale side?
Yeah. I mean, if anything, if I ever see a price tag 100K or less, it pretty much guarantees that business is not making money and likely losing money. So yeah, and it's just unless there's an obvious turnaround opportunity where in that case, it's like, okay, is it in a field that you have experience in where, it's like, oh yeah, I know that sort of business like the back of my hand, or it matches very closely to a specific skill set you have, right? Like if you're like this dynamic personality and been in sales all your life and it's a business that's struggling, that's maybe B2B, well, maybe you can go in there and, crush it and light it up and you're okay with it being a turnaround. But yeah, similar story in terms of valuations. How are folks that are coming on visas, are they typically paying cash for these businesses?
I mean, sometimes they'll do like a home equity line, especially with like Canadians, but it's almost always cash.
Yeah.
So it could be your personal savings. You could get a loan from a family member, but it's usually cash. And I do recommend people start small and take baby steps and don't invest, all your money into the business. The problem, say your net worth is 200K and you're investing 150K. Imagine you don't break even in the first 3 months and it's the 4th month. And the franchisor is telling you, hey, you got to put more marketing money. Your business, for whatever reason, hasn't hit that lift off. You've got to invest another 5, 10K in lead generation. You're going to be like, I don't want to invest that. I'm not investing that. But that's what it takes to not effectively close the business or potentially to drain money. So you want to have some extra capital. As opening up a business, franchises are more predictable, but any business, there are some fluctuations and you don't know exactly how it's going to be. And you need to be have that mindset that you're okay investing in that business. And if you're down to some of your last cash, you're going to make bad decisions.
Yeah. What are all the different, I mean, it's kind of jumping back in the conversation a little bit, but what are the different parts of the process that have to be managed and that are like interconnected at the same time? Meaning, okay, you got the legal side, you have to find a business, negotiating with the franchisor. Like, what are the different components of it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Great question. So I guess with our process, for your clients, your viewers, we'll have a free initial consultation. I'll go through a bunch of franchise examples, and I'll go through examples of people that have actually already invested in those E2 visa businesses. We can go through the item 19 where it shows the financials, so you can see what the business is like and examples. And from there, if you choose to work with us, you engage us. If you want to just reach out directly to those franchise brands, that's fine. If you work with us, we do a study where we present the top 4 or 5 options that fit your needs in that geography, in the industries of interest. We review those options. Then we start the calls with the franchisors until you start going the process and you're kind of decided on 1 or 2 franchisors. There's not much for the immigration attorney and franchise attorney to do besides opening up the LLC and asking for the EIN number, which you should do early in the process because it takes about 2 months for foreign nationals to get that tax ID. So besides that, opening the LLC, getting the EIN, there's not much for them to do. Once we've narrowed it down to 1 franchise and we've had validation calls with 5 franchisees that have already invested, ideally some E2 visa candidates, E2 visa holders, maybe even a former franchisee or 2 to see what they liked, what they didn't like about that franchise brand. Then it's kind of decision time, and we, working with your attorney. If you don't have an attorney, we can recommend a few that we've had, 100% success rate with, and that's where the negotiation happens in terms of what capital are you investing, what do you need to do to get the E2 visa, but what's a plan B if you're denied? We've never had a client that was denied twice. So we, out of hundreds of cases, we've had 8 or so clients that got a denial on their first attempt. All the ones that went back in were overcome.
Wow.
So they modified a little bit the business plan. We had a couple clients, they weren't committed. They didn't sign a lease. They just signed a letter of intent. Government didn't think that they were going to actually open up the business, as they did have a pretty easy out, and it was denied for that reason. So you have to show commitment to the government. They want you here, but you need to commit for them to commit to you to granting a visa for 5 years.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying the podcast episode so far. One of the most consistent things that we hear from people that reach out to us is that buying a franchise feels really confusing. There's so many options out there. It's a scary decision. They don't know how to vet or do the due diligence or really narrow down on the right franchise for them, and then they really feel alone in the process. You might be the only one in your family who's ever pursued buying a franchise or being an entrepreneur, or maybe you've tried to start a side hustle before, or other businesses like me. Like before franchising, I was not able to crack the code on entrepreneurship. I'd like to invite you to reach out and work with us. We've helped many clients buy franchises, get them profitable, or buy resale businesses that are thriving. I'm talking about highly profitable resales, great value. We've allowed many of our clients to actually quit their job right away and replace their income immediately. So if you want to work with me and my team on finding or buying a franchise, doing due diligence, vetting it, or resale, then go ahead and go to tariqjohnson.com/consulting, and we're happy to see if we can help. All right, enjoy the rest of the episode.
Yeah. Wow. That's cool. Yeah. The process on my side was very interesting as being the seller and, essentially the guy like funding, putting all the money in the escrow account and like, it's there, me as the seller, like, okay, he might buy my business. He might not buy my business. So then we're just, waiting on the formal approval. And, we were both ecstatic once he, said that he got the formal approval, which was just so exciting for the both of us.
How long did that take? It wasn't like, how long were you waiting with the funds in escrow?
Oh, not long. At that point, he had a lot of stuff really buttoned up. It had been working with a legal group and stuff. So it was, I think, start to finish, I think from when he had first reached out and signed like a, NDA, I think we completed the transaction within 3 to 4 months, maybe three.
Where he got the E2 visa and cash at your account.
Yeah, I think so. I'd have to look at the date.
So that's pretty fast.
Yeah, it was pretty smooth. It was right before COVID. COVID
Processing
was happening.
times. I mean, some consulates were like 1 to 2 weeks.
Wow.
It hasn't gone back down to that.
He's coming from Canada.
Okay, yeah. So Canada during the peak of COVID was 9 months. Now we're seeing 1 to 3 months.
Okay.
But a lot of sellers, say you have that 2-month process, 3-month process to do the transaction, they don't want to wait another 3 months. Or they'll do it, but they're going to collect 10, 20% non-refundable deposit.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been seeing for the franchise resales, as well as there's a lot of business brokers in our network and our affiliated company Vetted Biz that are telling us something similar, that there is basically a non-refundable deposit component when it is and then a lot of the funds are held in escrow contingent just on the E2 visa approval.
Yeah. See the value of being able to watch these sort of podcasts and interviews, because I didn't even know to even negotiate that on my side. It was all refundable. So in a sense, it was, I was taking on a little bit of risk.
90% plus of the time, it should be fine. But you could get that one candidate. Like we had a client years back that had a traffic ticket and he never paid it.
Oh, geez.
And they denied his E2 visa because of that. And this is like a traffic ticket from like 12 years ago. He didn't pay it. He didn't show up in court. Lawyer had to resolve that, and then he reapplied for the visa. But had it been a franchise resale, the seller wouldn't have gotten paid and probably would have been super pissed. And what happens to franchisors, like there was one franchise brand, Real Property Management, we had a client invest in. He has, I think, now over 400 doors in that system. We had 2 clients with them, but they had a negative experience with an E2 visa candidate. So they just shut off the program for like 4 or 5 years. They didn't want to take any more E2 visa holders. So that's what happened. Subway's done something similar, a UPS store. A lot of these big brands had E2 visa holders in the past. It only takes one negative experience and they don't want to have any E2 visa holders, any B5 visa holders going forward. So we're always trying to convince franchisors on the benefits, making the process as smooth as possible for the franchise investor as well as for the franchisor, so we can open up more opportunities. But there are circumstances, like I heard Subway, there were just some franchisees that got the E2 visa and didn't care for the business, and then the brand equity is like horrible. It's just like a shop that's rarely open, and then the person decides to move back home and just leaves the store. So you only need one of those cases, and they're like, no thanks, I don't want to deal with this, sadly.
Yeah, that's crazy, and definitely important to go with a E2 friendly franchise, right?
Yeah. Ideally, it's not their first rodeo. If it is, then we're just going to have to be a lot more involved. And we often will connect franchise president to franchise president of a brand that's already gone through the whole process. So they're not hearing it from us. They're not hearing it from you. They're hearing from someone that is in their seat at a different brand on what went well with the process and what they learned. So hopefully we can get this other franchise brand accepting our clients.
Yeah. Cool, man. Awesome. Well, for those of you who, if you want to get in contact with Patrick, we'll again leave the link below where you can set up a free consultation and, get started on your journey of coming over to the good old US of A. Patrick, before we wrap up, is there anything, anything that we didn't cover or anything that, that you really feel like the folks listening or watching should know?
Yeah, no, good question. I would say for the E2 visa, to do it right, your family should have a net worth above 200K. So if you're investing 80K, 100K, you have runway to live off of, or your spouse is also working, because your spouse gets work authorization right away. And then we have clients that have a net worth more of like 2 million and above, and they're already making 250, 300K or more. And for those clients, they're typically investing 200 to 300,000. and together with the franchisor, we're vetting, sourcing that day-to-day manager. So those are kind of the two most common client profiles that we work with for the E2 investor visa. You can do it on the cheap, but again, unless you have really strong control, you're probably going to make bad decisions on the business front and those first few months as you're riding the roller coaster, which is entrepreneurship, opening up the business. So that would be my advice and kind of the profiles of the clients that we work with at Visa Franchise.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on. Again, congrats on being the first 2-time visitor on the podcast.
Thanks so much.
And yeah, man, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tariq.
Yes, sir.